did King Solomon have some advice for us thousands of years ago on how to interact on the internet? Well, believe it or not, I believe he did. And we're going to look at it coming up. Hello and welcome to the One Verse Daily Devotional. My name's Matt and I'm so glad that you're with me here today, where we look at just one verse every single day to grow a little bit deeper in our faith. And today we're looking at a verse out of the book of Proverbs that, as I said in the intro, even though it was written thousands of years ago, I think it has a lot to say about the internet today and specifically social media. I know it's crazy, but I'm telling you, it has a lot to say, a lot of wisdom, a lot of advice today. And our one verse today is Proverbs 21, verse 4, and it says, "Haughty eyes and a proud heart, the unplowed field of the wicked produce sin." That's a little weird one, right? It was kind of weird. You're like, what, man, where are we going with this today? You said it was about the internet. He doesn't mention Facebook at all in this verse. Of course, he's not going to mention Facebook, but you'll see where we're going in a second. It says, haughty eyes and a proud heart. Well, we need to look at that first word, haughty. Haughty eyes, a proud heart. And you might be like, well, hold on. I do my best to live a humble life, to live after Jesus. Like, I don't want to live with pride. And I think that is commendable, but sometimes I think it can creep in ways that we don't see. And so I started looking at this word, not even doing a deep word study out of the original language. Let's just look at the word haughty from our own definition. Our own dictionary defines haughty like this: blatantly and disdainfully proud, having or showing an attitude of superiority and contempt for people or things perceived to be inferior. Could we just remove the word haughty and literally use this as a definition for the internet? It's like Facebook, having or showing an attitude of superiority and contempt for people or things perceived to be inferior. Is it just me, or is that exactly what you see in your news feed? Is that exactly what you see being posted every single day? It's people that have an attitude of superiority and contempt for things that they think are inferior. I mean, it's amazing. I read over this and I was like, oh man, I don't think I could put that any better for what I see people posting, especially in the States in this year of election. But I'm sure it's like this probably all over the world. It just seems like the internet has become a place not just to post our views. I really don't have a problem with that, but that we have this superiority, this disdain, this contempt for anything that we see is wrong or less or inferior, right? Well, let's go back to our one verse now. It says, haughty eyes and a proud heart. Now that we kind of put it over some of our Facebook posts, you're like, oh, maybe this one's speaking to me a little bit more than I realized, right? Maybe I have been posting with a little bit of a attitude of superiority. And yet the Bible warns us about that. It says, hey, time out. That doesn't mean that you're right about a situation. That's called pride. Ooh, that one cuts a little deep, doesn't it? But then he moves on. He says, the unplowed field of the wicked. When we live with haughty eyes, when we live with this proud heart, it's like having a field and not plowing it. I live in the great state of Indiana, and literally we are surrounded by fields. Matter of fact, before I moved, I could look out my front window and there was a field across the street. I grew up in my hometown surrounded by fields. Right now where I'm at, I can't see it, but I know right over there, there's a field I could walk to in about 30 seconds, all right? We are surrounded by fields, and I gotta tell you, growing up in a farming community, I can imagine someone spending tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of dollars to buy a field or several fields. You're talking hundreds of acres of land, right? And then it just sits there. I mean, people would be like, hey, what are you doing? You letting the land rest for a year? No, I'm going to plow it this year. Be like, okay, buddy, And then the next year comes along and they don't do anything. It's like, hey, the land doesn't need to rest again. Like, what are you doing? You need to plant that. And you're like, nah, I'll be fine. I'm just going to let it go. People would think you're crazy. It'd be like the worst investment you could possibly make for your life. People would think that farmer was crazy. Well, just like that farmer that wouldn't plow his field, Solomon says here in this proverb that living with that prideful heart, that having that view of others, of being superior and that they are inferior, that living that way is like having a field that you don't plow. You're not investing in your future. You're not investing in others. You're going to have no return, right? It's a horrible way to live. You're not going to see any fruit from your labor when you live a life looking down on others, when you live a life of pride. So I'm going to challenge you a little bit today. I'm going to challenge you to look back at your social media posts, to look at your Facebook wall, to see the things that you've posted and think, is that lifting up others or is that tearing down? Am I wanting to help move along the conversation? Or if I'm honest, I'm acting a little superior and I'm putting things down that I see as inferior, that I'm living with haughty eyes and a proud heart. Because when we live that way, we're like the farmer that has a field and he doesn't plant it. He doesn't put in the seeds. He doesn't put in the work. And so he doesn't see the harvest. And I want you to see a fruitful life. I want you to see a harvest of goodness and love and mercy and grace that pours out of your life. And you see the fruit for that down the road. But when you have this idea of superiority, looking down on others, pride brings about nothing but sin. And so I challenge you, take a look at what you've been posting. Does it build up or does it tear down? Are you wanting to help others or are you looking down on them? Kind of a tough one today. Kind of stings a little bit. But in this culture, I think it's a verse that we really need to take seriously. Have a great day.